Of people coming on now. So welcome everyone. I'm Emma. I'm from the Young Farmer Business Program, and today we're joined by Jeremy Hutchings from Farm Owners Academy. So we're going to have a little bit of a chat today about HR and how to hire and manage and retain the best staff for your business. So for everyone joining, just quickly beforehand, what I will get you guys to do is to jump on to slido.com, which is on you should be able to see on the screen now. If you jump onto slido.com and enter the hashtag farm, you should be greeted by a question that asks you what your postcode is from today. So I'm from Jeremy. Can you hear me, Jeremy?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. Where are you joining from? What's your postcode?
2727.
Yeah. So we haven't got anyone joining just yet. Entering their postcodes. Just remember to enter your postcode. So, oh, there we go, 2873. We've got some people joining now. So if you're just starting, if you could jump to slido.com and enter in the hashtag farm, you'll be greeted by the question of where or what's your postcode, where you live. And we can see where everyone's coming. Oh, we've got a couple more coming in. A lot of Central New South Wales. We had a couple of people on some other previous webinars that were joining us from Queensland, so that was quite fun. So we've got some other people joining now, so we'll give it a little bit more time. If you're joining still, if you're starting with us now, jump to slido.com. We're here with Jeremy Hutchings from Farm Owners Academy to talk about HR. All right, so we might jump to the next question.
Emma, I'm seeing your PowerPoint's not Slido at this stage, just so that you know.
You can't see my Slido? Okay, let me just see. Sorry, gang, that's a little bit of a technology issue. Let me just see if I can get my Slido for everyone. Can everyone see my Slido now?
That's perfect, thank you.
You've got that one now, so everyone can see where everyone's joining from?
Yep.
Fantastic. All right, so we'll jump to the next question. Doesn't want to let me jump. Here we go. So the next question is, where are you dialing in from at the moment? Are you at home? Are you at work? Are you sitting on the tractor or the header? If you are, I hope that you have autopilot on. Or are you on the run? Where is all? Everyone seems to be at work on their lunch break. That's fantastic. Got everyone joining in from work. No one's on the tractor, which is probably a good thing. A couple of people on the run. A little bit of a mix there. So we'll jump to the next question. So how did you hear about this event? So just wondering if you saw it on Twitter or on Facebook, via email, or did a friend tell you? How did you actually hear about the webinar today? Via email, that's good. You can still see that screen, Jeremy. Everyone can still see where we're all coming from. Absolutely,
Emma. Yeah.
Fantastic. So you guys might be wondering why we're asking these couple of questions. It's really important for us as a DPI government-funded program to actually understand our audience and to know what you guys, where you're from, what you do, what your businesses are like, and get an understanding for your businesses so that we can do the best thing and have the best chance of being able to help you. So at the end of the webinar, we'll also run some post-webinar questions, which is your chance to essentially give us confidential feedback on how effective today was, if you got anything from the webinar, any suggestions that you have for future webinars or future workshops. So it's all purely confidential. It won't go on the screen. No one will be able to see it. It'll just purely be for us to be able to review and make a plan of attack for future workshops and webinars. So it's really important. We appreciate every single piece of feedback. So coming into the next question now, what social media platforms do you use most? Are you guys predominantly Instagram, Facebook, Twitter users? It's always interesting to see what people's platforms or preferred platforms are. Quite a lot of Facebook users there. So if you're jumping on now, or if you've just joined us, we're on slido.com, just doing some pre-webinar questions. So enter the hashtag farm and you can join in. And then we'll jump into the last question, I think, before we head on or hand over to Jeremy. What age group are you? So where are we sitting with our audience? A couple of young guns, or no, we haven't got anyone. No one's got an age yet. We're all newborns, are we? Oh no, there we go. Got some good demographic, got some well-experienced people with us. Oh, there we go. We're all starting to answer now. It's always interesting to see who jumps onto these webinars. So that's really good. What I might do is I'll hand over to Jeremy from Farm Owners Academy to discuss HR with us today. So all yours, Jeremy.
Thank you, Emma. I'm just going to launch my PowerPoint, so just give me 1 second. Thank you, Emma and Alex, and the New South Wales Young Farmer Business Program for having me today. It's great to be here. Just to kick off, what I do want to talk about with you today is how to build high-performing teams, and absolutely that does span finding them, recruiting them, inducting them well, motivating them, and then managing them even when the chips are down. So looking forward to going into this. I've got quite a bit to cover, so just encourage you to grab pen and paper, and absolutely, if you've got questions as we go, type into the chat box and Emma can feed those questions through to me. Just to kick off, I think a lot of us are very good technically. We're very good cropping managers, we're very good livestock managers, but often this whole conversation around HR is something that we've never learned, and that we're kind of having to navigate on the run. And as a result, I guess we often see farmers quite reactive to the HR piece in their business. And so I'm looking forward to getting into this and hope that there's some real insights for you in this, in helping you build out a really strong management structure for how you lead your people, both family and employed team. So I guess just to kick off, and given that it is such a complex part of our business, what are some of your key challenges? If you had to name the number one challenge in your business now around HR, be it family or team, what would be your single biggest HR challenge at the moment? Just keen to hear from you if you can type into the chat box. And Emma, if you can feed those through to me when they arrive. I hear a lot out there that it's really hard to inspire good talent to come into regional areas, and I completely get that. I can certainly understand the challenge that plays out in trying to manage employed family members, and certainly casual staff and the casualisation of the workforce, and then retaining employed staff well are often a challenge that people face. But Emma, have you got any
Jeremy,
comments?
I'll just jump in. Your participants screen is showing. If you could just minimise that one,
Sure.
that'd be fantastic. Then that way we can see the presentation.
Good. Thank
Up
you.
there. Yeah, great. So we have got one question just feeding into this. What we're discussing now is that finding staff is probably one of the biggest issues that they're struggling with from a question.
Absolutely. Are there any others, Emma?
Not at this stage, Jeremy. That is the first and only one that we do have.
No,
but yeah, what other issues do you see?
There's so many. There is so many. Yeah. How much to pay, how to reward, the benefits that are on offer and how to value those. When there are issues with performance, when employees make significant mistakes, there are just so many challenges that we face around people leadership. So if you do have challenges as we go through that link to what I'm talking about, type them in, and I'm happy to stop the presentation and do my bit in helping you navigate some of those as we go. So I'll launch in, and this is probably not where you're expecting that I was going to go, but stick with me. There's a method to my madness here. Just got a simple glass or vessel of water on the screen. My question to you all is, what is that without you got? Now, the answer obviously is a puddle or a mess. And so in business and in everything, there is a context to how we structure our business, which is the glass in this example. And then there's content, which is all the stuff that just happens for us in business and in life. And I guess what I'm saying is that if we don't get the structure right and set a context for how we're going to manage and lead our people, then most of us are spending most of our time on our hands and knees just trying to contain the mess, just trying to navigate and keep that puddle in order, because at no point have we taken time to set the context for how our business does people management and does HR and does leadership. And so just be really clear on this, that there is context and content. Without the context, we've got a mess, and we're just going by default then having to spend all our time containing the mess. So if we haven't created a system for how we're going to manage our people, by definition, we're going to have a whole host of headaches in the HR space, and we're going to spend all our time reactively trying to put out spot fires and contain the mess as it relates to HR in our business. I hope that makes sense. So what we've got to really focus on, most people, when there is a problem, focus on the problem. But I would argue that what actually is playing out is that we have a problem because a month ago, 6 months ago, 12 months ago, we didn't take the time to create the system that can see that problem not happen in your business. So I'll keep going and explain that a bit further. When we don't have an HR system or an HR structure in our business, the result is we are reactive and having to put out spot fires, but also there's a whole lot of unnecessary drama and trauma in our business that we have to deal with that wouldn't be there if we had better systems and structures in place. And I think about my family. If we didn't have a set of house rules and a set of core values as a family and agree with our kids on what will and won't be tolerated in our house, which is just a system for how we parent, we would be spending all of our time having to wrangle our kids, and there would be a whole lot of unnecessary drama and trauma in our household as a result. So what we need to do in the HR space, especially in our businesses as farm owners, where we've got family team members and non-family team members working together, is focus really intently on the systems and structures that are going to help us be aligned, be effective, be proactive, and be able to work harmoniously together without drama and trauma. And it comes back to this whole conversation. I'll just jump forward a bit. No, actually, I'll stick going with this. I'll explain this again in a bit more detail. So when it comes to people management, creating culture is important. And as leaders in our business, setting down standards is something I'm going to talk quite a bit about today. This is a principle that we teach all of our clients at farm owners and suggest that this underpins how they go about their people management. And so there's two ways that we can live life. We can play life from above or below the line. Now, below the line is where there is blame, where people are able to make excuses or come up with reasons why things haven't happened. And then denial is the lowest form of below the line behavior. And that's where there is a problem and we avoid it. So all victims play from below the line. And if we have a culture in our business that is below the line, we can't win from there. We might, but not sustainably and not long term. Above the line is where people are willing to be responsible, people are willing to be held to account, and employees, both family and team, 100% own the part of the business that you give them responsibility for and are willing to treat it as if it was their own. Now, if we look at this as a spectrum, bottom to top, when I walk into any business, be it a local cafe or an accounting firm or even your farm business, you can hang around in that business for a couple of minutes or for a day and get a really good handle on where that culture sits on this spectrum. So if you reflect on the business that you're in right now, where would you put it? If you had to put a dot as to where the culture of your business was on this spectrum, where would you put it? And so is your culture at the blame level, at the excuse level, or are you up at responsibility or even accountability level? It's a really useful question to ask. And what can be really useful, even if you want to grab a screenshot of this, or I'm happy to share these slides, is to teach this to your team and to get it up on the wall and to explore together how you can create an above the line culture where people are willing to be responsible, willing to be held to account, and willing to take complete ownership for a specific part of your business. So just to move into this now, the best definition of leadership that I've heard is giving people certainty. And so I guess just on that whole conversation around setting down a really good HR infrastructure and really good HR systems, people just want certainty. And so they want to arrive into a job. They want to be given a clear definition of what's expected of them. They want to understand what their role is very clearly. They want to understand how they're going to be rewarded, how they might get an extra bit of reward if they go the extra mile. They want to understand how their career is going to develop and how they might grow with your company and earn more and learn more over time. They want to understand where the company is going, what the vision for the company is, what the directors want to achieve over the next 5 and 10 years. And if you have got all of that in your head and there isn't answers to that as part of someone's induction, I would argue that we're not setting them up strongly at the outset and we're not giving them certainty. And this is where I want to encourage all of you as business owners that we've absolutely got a leadership responsibility to slow down, to speed up. And what I mean by that is stopping long enough and allocating time long enough to invest in creating the HR system that can support your people from recruitment process, through induction process, through the ongoing day-to-day, week-to-week, quarter-to-quarter, year-to-year structures that can support good people management and good business governance. In doing so, that gives people certainty, and ultimately that's all they want. So if you had to rate yourself out of 10 on how good your HR systems and how good your HR infrastructure is in your business now, your farm business, what would you give it out of 10? Have you got a recruitment system that's documented, an induction process, job descriptions, performance reviews, meetings, training programs, performance review processes, and I could go on. But if all of those things are what ideally we would have, what are you giving yourself out of 10 in terms of the degree to which they're in place right now? Emma, any scores coming in?
No, not at this stage, Jeremy. Personally, in our business, we'd probably have about a 5 or a 6. We haven't got anything in writing or set in stone in place. It's all sort of just he said, she said, which, you know, in long term could be, you know, to our detriment. But at this stage, it's not. But we have got a response come in. It's a 1. What would your reaction be to a 1, Jeremy? What would you have? What would you suggest?
Yeah, so we'll get into it now, but 1's not abnormal. In small businesses, you think about plumbing companies, farm businesses, physiotherapy practices, this stuff just isn't in place. So Emma, the fact that you're giving yourself a 5 or a 6 is actually a really good score. Most small businesses haven't put anything in place around this, and then wonder why they find it hard to attract and maintain a really good culture and HR framework long term. So I'll keep moving, but none of those results surprised me, Emma.
Just a question, Jeremy, then what would you expect for someone who would sort of say, would rate themselves an 8 or a 9? What would you expect from someone who rates that? Would you expect that they would have nearly all of their I's dotted and their T's crossed and have all of their practices in place and have the right documents and stuff in place as well?
Absolutely. You think about a law firm or an accounting firm, Emma, that has 50 employees.
Yep.
All of that needs to be in place for them to be able to manage that payroll effectively without drama. All of it has to, right down to meeting minutes, daily huddles, weekly meetings, board reports, performance management processes, training systems. And so I'm not saying in farm business that we necessarily need to go that far, but we certainly won't keep people or sustainably grow our business if we stay at 1 out of 10. And I'll explain that more as we go. We've got to make a real investment in putting the right system in place so that we can give our people certainty and give them that structure that they're looking for. So Deming is, I'm a bit of a groupie of this guy. This guy is revered for helping Japan move from being a mass producer of junk before World War II to being the single reason why Japan is fundamentally now revered for efficiency and quality in what they produce in manufacturing. And so there's 9 hidden turning points in history. Deming is the only business-related human hidden turning point. We don't know about him, but he has had a massive impact on efficiency and quality in business. And I think we can learn a lot from his approach to the stuff that we're talking about here. But what he believed, and he proved this in science and in mathematics, that 94% of problems that we have in business can be resolved with a systems correction rather than focusing on the people that we actually have in our business at that time. Yet when there is a problem in our business, most of us as managers want to focus on the people problem because that's where the drama and the excitement is. So when there is a problem, we want to focus on the person with whom the problem is linked. When in actual fact, what we've got to focus on as leaders is what is the systems correction to that problem. And what Deming's saying is most of the time, there is a systems correction to our people problems. So my question for you guys is, when there is an issue in your business, where do you focus? So just an example. We had one the other day where one of our clients found out that, now that's probably not the best example in this instance, But let's say that you've got an employee who is consistently turning up 15 minutes late, and when left unchecked is taking 65 minutes for lunch instead of 30 minutes. Most people in that example want to make that individual wrong and towel up the individual. And that is human nature. But my question to you is, what wasn't in place, or what isn't in place in your HR system that could drive that behavior out long term? So when there is a people problem like that, it's an opportunity to fix our system. And I'll get into what the system needs to look like in order to support better people management and leadership. Let's get into it. So here are the 6 key things that we think farm businesses need that set the context for how we're going to manage our people and grow our business and drive a lot of that drama out. So the first one is to make sure that the vision that you have is not in your head only, that it's on paper and that people are enrolled in it. And I'll speak to that shortly. The next one is a really clear set of core values. The next one is a really strong code of conduct. Then a really clear team structure. And around that, really clearly defined roles and responsibilities. And then point 6, a really concise action plan that is in helping you achieve a really clear set of goals. That for me is the starting point that we need to have in place in order to bring some of our HR issues into line. I'll go into these in a bit of detail now and just talk them through. And hopefully as I go, you'll see the way in which these can really help better navigate this whole HR piece. So a vision statement is really important for a whole range of reasons. But as I said before, people need to know where you're going and what you're trying to achieve. And importantly, they need to see a vision for themselves and their own development in the vision that you have. If they can't shackle their vision to your vision, you won't keep them long term. And your vision has to enroll and inspire. So if your vision is about making as much money for you and your family so that you can retire and pass the farm on to your children, there's not much in it for your employed team members. So why would I hang around and help you achieve your vision? So your vision statement can be really concise, but it's got to enroll and inspire me as an employee in your business so that I want to hang around and shackle my future to your vision. So it might be to be the most efficient crop, broadacre cropper in the central New South Wales region. Or it might be to be the single best fine wool producer in New South Wales. A vision like that is on paper and that is enrolling and inspiring is the starting point, I think, to firstly attracting and then retaining people long term. Most businesses don't have a clear vision statement. And the risk with family businesses is that each of the family members has a different view on what that looks like. And if the family members in the business can't get on the same page around something as simple as a common goal into the future, that has a flow-on effect to how engaged our employees are with the business over time. Your mission statement is just the documented one-page definition of how it is that you're going to achieve the mission, the vision statement. There are some wonderful examples online. If you were to jump on and Google it, and there's a useful process that I'm not going to go into detail with today that can help you better define what that is for you and your family and your business long term.
Jeremy, just a quick question on that one. So would someone's mission, or would a business's mission be something that's ever changing? Would they change their mission statement if their business changes, or if you know, different demands, or depending on what type of business they are, if their goals change, would you encourage them to consistently change their mission as well to be in line with that? Or
absolutely, yes, the vision of a business absolutely needs to change over time, Emma. But I would suggest that happens as part of an annual process. I wouldn't be changing the vision this week because you had an idea on the weekend. I would suggest we need to set down a vision for the business, and it might be where you want to be 5 years from now or 10 years from now. And then once a year, you check that vision, that it's still relevant, still enrolling, still inspiring, and still meaningful for you and your team. And if it is, then you stay with it. If in the annual planning meeting, and we'll touch on that shortly, it needs to be refreshed, then for me, that's the time to do it. Great question. He or she with the biggest vision wins. It's a really valuable statement, but I want to encourage you guys to really think about a lofty, significant vision. It's really important in enrolling people to come on board with you and stay with you. And it's a really important step in driving out conflict and disharmony within a family dynamic, where people have different views of what that is. The next part of this is core values, and very few small businesses have their core values on a wall, and have it that both family and employed team members know what they are. Once you're clear on your core values, these can underpin all of your other systems. So your job descriptions, your recruitment ads, all the decisions you make can be made with a reference back to your company's core values. But most people don't have these. And then we have a situation where everyone on your team is operating to their own core values. And it's very hard to align a group of people when they're all just doing their own thing to their set of core values or what they believe.
too many cooks in the kitchen.
You think about the All Blacks as an example, or an elite sporting team. Absolutely, their team is underpinned by a set of standards and a set of rules, and both those things are linked back to the core values on what it means to be an All Black. And we need to take that same approach and apply it into our businesses. And just to go into that a bit more detail, I deeply believe, and Deming proved this, that core values underpin everything. And in terms of setting the context for our business and driving the drama and trauma out, it's a really important exercise to sit down and say, what are the values that underpin our family? And what are the core values and standards that underpin how our business is going to operate and grow together? Then when you're recruiting and inducting, and in your team meetings and your training sessions, you can often be linking back to the core values. Your reward system for your people can be rewarding based on the core values. If one of your core values is efficiency, you can reward someone each month or each quarter or each year based on who had the biggest impact on efficiency in your business. That's enrolling and inspiring for one of your team members to get the efficiency award this year. Sporting teams do it, larger business teams do it. And I think these practices are really important for us to apply to our farm businesses at the same time. Absolutely a key to being aligned. And just some examples.
Did anyone have any questions on that? Just briefly, if anyone had any questions, just put them in the Q&A chat and I can ask Jeremy for you.
Yep. So I'm going to keep going and we can come back as those questions come in. The next one is a code of conduct. And I'm going to give you some examples and then share with you how to set this. But if there's one system that is really important to put into your business, in addition to vision and core values, it is a code of conduct. How do we expect our people to behave? And so here's the All Blacks, and it's absolutely worth Googling. And if this interests you, read the book on the All Blacks called Legacy. But they have come up with, over time, 13 rules that underpin how they will play together. They're the best team in history across any sport ever. And these rules are unbelievably compelling and powerful. And everyone on that team, when they put on the jersey, is committed to upholding these core values or this code, and to leaving that brand better than when they arrived to it. Good enough.
Jeremy, a question that's just come through. Would you put them down? Would you put it down to the fact that they're such a successful team based on the fact that they have all of these practices in place and this plan?
Absolutely. And when you read the book Legacy, they talk about how important the process they went through to get these this code of conduct or these principles in place years ago was the thing that transformed them from being an average team to being an elite team. And if you think about the Wallabies and you think about some of the other teams that come up against this team, the All Blacks, absolutely. They're just 15 blokes on a field. They might be a bit fitter. They might have a little bit more talent, but it's how they play together and how their energy is focused that sets them apart. And that comes back absolutely to these core principles. So just a couple more examples. The Ritz-Carlton have a really compelling one. You think about the Ritz-Carlton, they do 6-star hospitality service. And you think about the difference between the Ritz-Carlton and a 3-star hotel at Dubbo. The only difference between the 3-star hotel and the 6-star Ritz-Carlton is the quality of their standards. So if we don't have standards documented, our people will just do what they want in the matter that they've learned to this point. But having a code of conduct can get them all on the same page, give them real certainty around what is expected of them in terms of how they turn up and how they perform. And it can all be really strongly condensed and committed to one page. Another example is the US Army Code of Conduct. 6 really concise points. And again, worth Googling. This hasn't come up all that clearly, and I apologize for that. But you think about the US Code of Conduct or any Army Code of Conduct. When an 18-year-old is captive as a prisoner behind enemy lines and being tortured, all they need to do in terms of how they conduct themselves in the heat of battle is link back to the code. And in any situation when they're in the war zone, all of their behaviour needs to uphold this code. And these are 18-year-olds with guns in war zones. And so if this code of conduct can get all of them on the same page and performing the same way, if it's good enough for them, why not us? And so coming up with a code of conduct is really important. And there's only two questions that you need to ask to get this done. The first one is to sit down with your team and a whiteboard and answer the question, what will break this business? What are all the things that in how we behave as a team that will bring this business unstuck? And get all of those things up on the whiteboard, and then ask the opposite question is, how can we become a high-performing team? How do we need to play in order to be an excellent aligned team? Once you've got all of those things up on the whiteboard, you can then drill down to, well, what are the 5 or 6 or 7 rules or standards, or what's our code that will mean that we won't do that and that we give ourselves the best chance of the other. really useful exercise. But that process of doing that transformed the All Blacks, and it can do the same for our farm business teams as well. Our farming clients across our Platinum Mastermind program absolutely work intently on these really important pieces, and the results do speak for themselves.
And Jeremy, just for our small businesses out there, you know, would it be safe to say that it doesn't matter whether you've got 4 employees or 40 employees, every single stage in this practice or in this process is just as vital?
Yep. So every business has to start somewhere. You probably won't grow beyond 4 employees if you don't do this stuff, because you'll be too busy stuck in the content and dealing with the drama. But if you want to grow from 4 to 14, you have to do this stuff. And even if you want to just stay at 4, if you want to be more effective and have more leverage and get better results, this stuff's still important. It's actually easier to put in place for a small business. Imagine putting this in place if you had 200 employees. It's a lot easier to do when you've got a small team. Get in and get it done. And on the back of doing that, you will then be able to be more effective, be more profitable, build out your team.
I've just had a question come in, Jeremy. So would you suggest that the best time to start these practices and actually implement this stuff is in the onboarding process or in the interview process, or once they've actually been employed, as opposed to employing them and then a couple of weeks down the track it sort of goes badly and then you have to start fresh again? Or
yeah, so the key is just to start. So I would get the key members of your team and family together and do these 3 really important exercises, and then share them with the team that you have and enroll them in these things. And I'll speak to that shortly. Then once you've done that, from that point on, every recruitment, so your job ads and your recruitment campaign can be unique and different because of how you position the company in the market when you're recruiting. And then absolutely your induction has to speak really strongly to these. I'll show you, we've just recruited an admin support person. I'm going to show you how we recruited them, and I'm going to show you how we inducted her. And it was absolutely all around this.
what about for someone, so we've had another question come through, which is quite an interesting and a valid point. What would you do if, you know, you've had an employee that has no documentation? How would you go about implementing this stuff for someone who is already a current employee?
You've got options. Either you get it done and share it with them, and they will either come on board with it or they won't. And that's okay. Not everyone will come along for the ride. The other option is to enroll them in it and make them a really important part of the creation of this. And they will be far more motivated, engaged, and aligned and inspired if you do have them involved in it. You'll keep them for longer. Yeah, so they're the key options, I think. I hope that answers that question, Emma.
Yeah, no, listen, if we have any follow-up questions on the piggyback of that answer, Jeremy, I'll definitely let you know.
Yep. People just want to know what the rules are. So if you stepped onto a rugby field and you've never played it before, it's really hard to perform. But once you know the rules of rugby, you know that you know what happens when the ball goes out, what a scrum is, what a line out is, or netball, which zones on that field you can go into or not go into as the goal defence. Once you know the rules, then you can play full tilt within the confines of those rules.
Yeah, great analogy.
But if your business doesn't have rules and doesn't have a clear set of core values and a clear set of a code of conduct, your people it's like they're on the field not knowing how to play the game. That would be like putting me on a gridiron field and expecting me to perform. I have no idea about those rules. So how can I be effective? Cool. So the next part of this is to make sure you've got a document that is really clear on the team structure. Here's an example. Here's what our farm looks like. We've got all of these functional areas. Now, it might be at the moment that I wear 6 of the hats and my name's next to 6 of these boxes. You know, I'm the CEO, I'm the head of production, I'm the head of finance, and I'm the head of marketing. That's okay. But at least as a result, I'm clear on my role. It might be that you've got an employee who you make responsible for weed control, maintenance, plant and structures. But until you start getting this on paper and letting him know that he or she is responsible for these parts of the business, you'll be tripping over each other and be very inefficient. So it's really important to get a good team structure in place. And then around that team structure, it's really important to define roles. And I'll show you some examples of that shortly. And then it's really important to align performance metrics to the job descriptions so that people know what the goals and what the targets are. That if they hit their target, like let's say that someone is responsible for, an employee is responsible for weed control. You can put metrics around that. Your budget this year is $12,000 and we want X, Y, and Z achieved. We want these noxious weeds on the hills knocked over in this month. We want these things done. Are you good with that? And then it's for them to manage. Or maintenance. You can give someone a budget and then check at the end of the year that they haven't gone over the budget. But until you actually get this out and get structure and a method around it, people won't have the certainty that they need. And it's very hard to delegate without these sorts of systems in place. I'll show you some roles defined shortly, but that's the next piece in this puzzle. And then the last part of it is once you've got all of that architecture done, then it's about having really clear goals and really clear action plans and have that documented so that people are working to a plan. If employees can focus on a plan and understand their part in the execution of that plan, that's when you start to really get the rubber to hit the road and get them focused. And when they're focused, a lot of the drama, a lot of the issues, a lot of the problems, a lot of the mistakes can go away. So I'm just going to move now and show you some examples of this. So we've created a farm recruitment pack that is free and available for all of you through Emma and Alex and New South Wales Young Farmers. So there's templates and tools and examples and instructions right through this to help farming families just like you get this stuff in place. So defining the roles within the business, org charts, job descriptions, example job descriptions, recruitment ads, employee handbooks, performance review processes, how to build trust within a team, how to exit someone when needed, all in here. So with job descriptions, for example, here's a farmhand example job description. Just coming up now. Shouldn't be taking this long. Emma, just while this comes up, were there any questions coming in?
There are a couple which I can feed to you while we're downloading. Yeah. So what would be, one question we had was, what would you think would be the most common, not mistake, but issue from a HR point of view that small businesses or farming businesses face? What would you think would be the common issue upon all businesses?
two things come to mind. One is people not being clear on what their role or what's expected of them. And there's a whole lot of issues that can play out from that. And then people not feeling appreciated or rewarded effectively.
Yeah, great.
So,
yep.
People being paid the minimum wage and expected to work 60 and 70 hours a week over harvest and shearing, feeling unappreciated.
Yeah, you can see how that would go south, can't you?
For some reason,
Another question, have you got any tips, any, straightforward beginner's tips for someone who's looking to implement these into their business from the ground level? Have you got, like, what would be your top 3 tips, for example, for everyone?
Yeah, so just start at the start. I've tried to sort of shape this, and we've tried to create this farm recruitment pack that you can work through it methodically. But I would forget about or focus less on the HR issues that you've got in the here and now. You've got those because you don't have a good system in place. So I would take the focus off those and instead just enjoy the process of asking the question, what's our vision for 10 years from now? And what are our core values? And what are the things that are going to bring us unstuck? And what's our code of conduct? I would start at the start, forget about the issues you have, and just work through the process. Then what's our team structure? And then start moving through creating job descriptions for people. And then sharing those with the people that you have and enrolling them in that process. Hope that answers that question, Emma.
Yeah, Jeremy, at this stage, if it didn't answer the question, shoot me another chat in the chat box and I can answer the follow-up question for you.
It's not one that necessarily allows you to probably get what you want in this moment, which is to fix the HR problem that you have. So I know that's not necessarily probably answering the specific question, but I hope I'm making sense that what's more important than fixing the HR issues that you have is creating the system that will see them disappear into the future. So that,
Jeremy, what about if you work for yourself and you work on your own? You don't actually have any employees or anyone that you report to. Is HR systems or any management systems vital for just a sole trader or an individual person? Or is it still necessary, or would you suggest anything for someone who is a sole trader?
So what I would say to that, Emma, it's a great question, is if you've got no intention ever of recruiting anyone, then what you've created for yourself is a job, and that's okay. But your whole career will be doing what you're doing. And if that means that you can create the wealth that you want for yourself and your family, you just working alone in your business that way, that is completely fine. But if you've got aspirations to employ people and delegate duties, fencing, shearing, weed control, and some of those activities, and even if you want to bring in subcontractors to get those things done, then these things all have a place, I believe.
Yeah, fantastic. Yep. Got some great questions coming through still, so we'll keep going with the questions if that's all right, Jeremy. What are some of the best places, or where would you recommend to place recruitment ads for the best outcome for finding staff?
Yep, I'm going to get into recruiting shortly, if that's okay.
Okay, well, we might hold that one then for the recruitment.
Yep. So just before we do this action plan, like getting a plan in place is really important. So I'm going to move through these, but in terms of implementing an operating system, we've got a model that we use that has over time, people get really clear on their vision, the data they need for decision making, a really strong set of HR processes, an action plan, which is the traction piece, an issues list, and then over time to drive out those issues in a business, and then a people management module as well. And so I'm going to just share with you briefly what's really important once you've got core values, code of conduct in place, is then to think about your communication rhythm. And what we recommend is that 2 days a year, people leave their farms and devise what is their plan for this season in line with what are the goals that we want to hit in 3 years' time. And then every quarter, you have another day that is defining what is the plan for this coming quarter. And then every week having a short meeting, which is focusing on what's got to get done to implement the quarterly plan that will see you arrive and execute well on your annual and your longer term plan. Most farms that we come in contact with, they don't have weekly meetings. They don't have quarterly planning sessions, and they certainly don't have strategic planning meetings annually. And that communication rhythm is an opportunity to align and enroll your people regularly and keep them focused on a common plan. And so with that too, this is the document that we suggest that people put in place, that is a strategic plan, again, that can be shared with your team and can keep them aligned and enrolled because they feel like they're part of the execution of a plan that is well documented and is meaningful. So just have a quick look at this and I'll keep moving. I'm not going to spend a lot of time today on how to create this plan, but this is the next piece in the puzzle. This is the 6th point on those 6 points I shared at the outset. Then it's a really concise 1-year plan, quarterly plan. So the 90-day rocks is your quarterly plan, and then an issues list. We think that having a strategic plan that can fit on 3 pages like this is really valuable and really important, and gives people, employees and family members included, so much focus. And often there is conflict and we're not in alignment when we don't have a common goal and a common focus. And so all of these processes are designed to get people on the same page. There's a whole lot of other rhythms and rituals that you can put in place, like a monthly Friday barbecue, bringing coffee out to the team if you're near a regional centre on a weekly basis. I know on our farm growing up, we cleaned the workshop every Friday morning at 7 o'clock until 8:30. And then mum brought a tea cake over. And just that ritual was really important in keeping our team aligned. So what are the rhythms and rituals? What's the communication framework that can allow you to manage your people and keep them engaged long term? It's often the little things that make the big difference. And I know for our staff that if we didn't have the monthly barbecue and that Friday cake with mum and dad growing up, that our employed team, if we didn't have them, they missed them. And so what are the rituals and what's the formal communication framework that can support your team long term? You put these things in place and so many of the issues that we could be talking about in this session disappear. So now getting into recruiting. My first question to you is, what is your value proposition? And so if there's 5 cafes in town, they all have a slightly different value proposition that pitches to a different market. And as business owners, we are in the business of recruiting people and finding people. And what I hear often is that we just can't get good people to come into our area or onto our farms. And I believe, and this was said to me once by a mentor, and it's a tough pill to swallow, but we get the people we deserve. I'll say that again. In business, we get the people we deserve. And I guess the way that I think about this is, if I want to find a girlfriend or a life partner, firstly, I've got to be attractive, whatever that is. in order to attract someone who wants to hang around with me for a while. And so if I can't find good people and I can't keep good people, I would ask, what's keeping me from being attractive? What am I not turning up to the market with that is having me not able to attract people into my business long term? And I would argue that in most regions, so if you think about your region where you're farming, there are farms out there that somehow manage to find good talent and keep them. And for some reason, at this point, you're just not one of them. It's a tough conversation to have. I hope you don't mind me being straight on this, but I think it's really important. And so I guess what I mean by this is, what is it that sets you apart as an employer? Why should I come and work for you? If you can't answer that, if there aren't 5 reasons why I would work for you, your value proposition before you go out to the market to recruit isn't strong enough. We can no longer just pay the minimum wage and expect people to work 60 hours a week and expect them to come on board in the first place or hang around. Our value proposition has to be really strong. So I'll give you an example. One of our clients was finding it difficult 3 years ago, difficult to attract people into the region. And so they went through the process that I've just been through with you, and they got vision, values, code of conduct, communication framework, job descriptions, team structure, all of that in place. And then they answered this question really strongly: what sets us apart? What's our value proposition as an employer? And they determined that for the right person, they were going to pay well above market. That person would get a car, would get a house, would get free meat, but also in return for that, these were the expectations. At harvest, those employees are expected to work 60, 80, even 100 hours a week. But one of their points of difference was that they give their staff 6 weeks holiday a year, because they work so hard in the busy periods and throughout the year that in return they get 6 weeks, not 4. And at harvest, there is a bonus for people who demonstrate and live and play true to the code of conduct and true to the core values and hit their targets. They also, when someone started with them 3 years ago and they had all of this in place, people love a ladder to climb. So if I start with you today and I perform, how is my career going to develop with you over time? And so the farm assistant that came on with this client 3 years ago, after 2 years became the farm manager, received a significant harvest bonus, and is now about to have the opportunity to have a profit share in the operating entity of the farm. Now, this family has 2 children who want to come back to the farm, and the farm manager is being given an opportunity to profit share in the operating entity of that business before the children are given that opportunity. Now, in accounting firms and law firms and physiotherapy practices, employees are retained long-term by given incentives like bonuses, profit share, and even equity. Now, if this farm manager continues to track over the next 2 years, that person will have the opportunity to take an equity position in the operating entity of that farm, which is really compelling for that farm manager. So that farm manager is going to play full tilt and he's going to hang around in that business long term and not look to be redeployed anywhere else, because there's a career ladder that he is able to climb, and his reward, if he keeps performing, is well mapped out in front of him. Why would he go anywhere else? He might not get that opportunity anywhere else. So there's an example for me, guys, that the value proposition of that farm business is perfect and significant. And if they applied for another job, for another recruit, how they arrive to the market in terms of what their job ad looks like, and their campaign, and then their induction is completely different. And their offer to potential candidates is completely different to most other people in their region. So I'm willing to wage that family is not going to have a problem finding people, because they've thought really hard about that single question: what's going to set me apart as an employer? What's the system for how we're going to be different in how we reward, motivate, and retain our clients long term, retain our team long term? I hope that makes sense. So I'm just going to show you as well in here.
Jeremy, just on the recruitment side of things, just conscious of time if people are on their lunch breaks, where would you suggest they place their recruitment ads for finding these staff?
So there's two responses there, Emma. Firstly, before you just go and throw an ad up on on Seek or on Gumtree or in the local paper, or with an employment agent, answering that question, what sets us apart as an employer and what are our core values, is really important, because the content of that ad then becomes very different. So that it's not just a name rank serial number type ad. The ad has to be different. And then depending on the role, if it's a farm manager, you might go out to an agent. They might put it out on Seek. They might put it in the land and or they might leverage their network. That's all spot on. All of those avenues are valuable and they do help you get good candidates. But in addition to that, I suggest you do your own campaign. And here's our example. We recruited an exec admin and support officer recently. We put it up on Seek. We put it out in local print media. We put it out to our database and on Facebook. But we created this landing page, a video describing the role and what sets us apart and what our value proposition is. You can click on that and see the job summary. And here's how we wanted them to apply, not just a normal application process. They had to send us a video. And the video needed to answer these questions. And then the next step would be that they put their resume in. We did this and we got 86 applicants. Now, I'm not saying you're going to get that for farm assistant and farm manager roles, but creating something like this that has you look different in the market to all the other job ads out there gives you a better chance of getting applicants. So don't be conventional, I guess is what I'm saying. Go about recruitment creatively and differently. In putting this video in, it gives me a chance to create a really strong first impression in the market, rather than just a traditional job ad that people will look at for 2 seconds and then skip over. And that video can go up on Facebook and be shared and gives me a far better chance. All my friends can punch it out to people they know. And so having a different method, and I'm happy to share what we recommend around our recruitment method that does allow you to arrive to the market in a different way to the conventional, that will get you a better result than just putting an ad up on Sleek up on Seek that is no different to all the other job ads that are up on Seek. So Emma, I hope that answers the question. Be creative, be unique, be unconventional.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Do your own campaign over and above a traditional campaign.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Now, like you, I'm mindful of time, so I might move to close if that's okay.
Yeah, yep, no dramas at all. I'm mindful of it as well in case people want to go back to work or have afternoon jobs. So that's great.
Final comment, guys, with your people is be open, have them involved, and keep them included. So many people think all the decisions have to be with the business owner, and we treat our employees a little bit like mushrooms. We put them in the corner in the dark, but still expect them to perform. The more you can enroll them in the creation of the things that I've talked about, normally they will be more engaged, more committed. They will go the extra mile for you. And as I said at the outset, a lot of the drama and trauma and the issues that will be turning up for you now will disappear over time for putting a stronger system in place. Over time, it all comes together and you can get everyone on the same page and get that real synergetic effect, which is what you see from the likes of the All Blacks that are high-performing teams that can work on farms and in business. But it starts with getting that system in place. So I hope that is of value to you all. As I said at the outset, HR is a really complex piece. And there's a lot of issues that can come up around people management, but having that system in place and the structures in place are really important in helping you drive a lot of that out long term. So Emma, I'll leave it there if that's okay. What I would like to just suggest is if people do want access to that recruitment pack, it's a free resource. We can share that link perhaps with them through you, Emma, and that'll give people a whole lot of tools and templates and resources so that they're not starting with a blank piece of paper.
Fantastic. No, I definitely personally have got a lot from your knowledge and what you've explained today, Jeremy. So thank you from both myself as well as everyone who has joined in. What I will just quickly ask is, going back, everyone, if you could please jump onto slido.com and enter farm, #farm back in. And then that way we can do the post-workshop or the post-webinar survey to get all of your information and all of your feedback on what were the great key points from today or what you would like to see for future webinars. Any feedback is greatly appreciated on our end. So that was slido.com and the code is #farm. So thank you, Jeremy, from myself, and thanks from everyone else. Thanks guys for attending and taking your time out of your lunch break. And I hope everyone has a great end to their week.
Thanks again for the opportunity, Emma, and nice to connect.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jeremy.